I was blind for 2 years. Ask me anything. To be clear, my eyes worked fine. I had a variation of the condition called visual anosmia, where my eyes could see, but my brain couldn't process the visual information. It arose from damage to my occipital lobe during a vacation in the Amazon. I could see nothing, pitch black. A surgical procedure 2 years after the accident in the forest restored my vision. When you pooped, how did you know when to stop wiping? I didn't. I just wiped a lot. Did you see it coming? I see what you did there. Did you ever say that while you were blind? After I got over being sad, I joked about it all the time. When I got my vision back, I liked playing pranks on people that weren't aware of it yet, usually employees of places I frequented. Go on. Looking at people who knew I was blind straight in the eyes and not gazing away was one that got a few of them. There was one girl at a Starbucks who already had me on a first name and last name, "How was your day?" basis, which I said, "I've been faking the whole blind thing to get in your pants, see?" Then started stacking cans of double shots. Her face was one I'll never forget, unless I go blind again. What was it like seeing the girls you had been hitting on without knowing what they looked like? Disappointing or pleasantly surprising? A little disappointing, because the essence of them, which I created in my head, which had zero to do with physical looks, was now forever lost, and I could never get it back. What were your dreams like? If you forgot what things looked like, I'm guessing the visual sensation in dreams was also absent, right? That's a good question which most people don't ask. My dreams exclusively consisted of sounds and smells. I definitely don't remember dreaming of anything physical. Sometimes I did have dreams of situations that a seeing person would have, like running away from a monster or flying, except I was doing it all blind. Now that you have your vision back, do you miss anything from when you were blind? I miss the sass, and quite frankly the way people treated me. I got a lot of good attention and random strangers liked talking to me when they saw me walking around with a cane. What was it like looking in the mirror the first time, noticing that you'd aged 2 years? How had the world changed visually in that time? It was strange, but felt completely familiar. Even though I couldn't picture what I looked like throughout the whole ordeal, upon seeing my reflection I was like, oh look, it's me with a beard. I kept facial hair because it felt nice to touch. The rest of the world didn't seem to have changed much. Can you elaborate on the miss the sass part? Were you getting laid more often, just for being blind or some other reason? I'm saying I miss the way I experienced it while blind. It's not something I can simulate effectively with a blindfold, and it's tough to put into words. Did you smile really wide when you saw your first really nice set of books after having regained your vision? I spent hours looking at naked women and porn soon after regaining it. What caused the damage? Why did it take 2 years to get it fixed? I saw a monkey and started to climb the tree to get to it. I don't even know why I did it. I knew I wasn't going to be able to catch up to it or anything. I slipped on some moss, and when I fell the back of my head hit against a jagged rock. I was knocked out, and when I awoke I couldn't see. I was there with a group of people who took me to a hospital. It took a while, because of a few things. First, doctors wanted to see if the lesions could heal on their own. After they did, they left scarring. The surgery to fix that didn't go well and it almost killed me, so that was that. After a year and a half though, I started flirting with the idea of seeing again, so we got started on hopefully having the surgery again. I went through with it and it worked. Is there anything that make you go, I'm glad I'm able to see that from pure awesomeness? Women in the sky. Definitely. Can you describe the very moment you regained your sight? The very first thing I saw was my doctor giving me this shut-eating grin. Then my mom crying her ass off. Then my dad smiling. Then my sister making funny faces. Was it painful? La Matrix. Why do my eyes hurt? You've never used them. Not at all. My eyes were working fine the whole time. I did get mild headaches for a few days, but I suspect it came from them drilling a hole in my head. How long did it take to get used to it? Some things came quickly, other things took months to fully acclimate myself to. Colors were by far the quirkiest things. How has your outlook, attitude on life changed since this has happened? Believe it or not, I now take more risks than before. This coming from the guy who chased a monkey up a tree in a rainforest. Is there any risk of the condition coming back, or are you 100% fixed? I'm as good as the next guy in that regard. This could happen to anyone under the right circumstances. What was the impact on your interpersonal relationships? Were your friends supportive of you for the whole 2 years, or did some of them abandon you? Have you become friends with awesome people that you wouldn't have met otherwise? How did your partner, if any, react to this? My girlfriend broke up with me 2 weeks after it happened. She claims it wasn't the blindness, and that I changed, whatever. All of my friends were supportive, and it didn't take long for the blind jokes to start up. I didn't mind. Once I was over the initial sadness of it all. My parents took it real hard. They felt so much pity it was hard to be around them sometimes. Has being blind influenced the way you perceive colors? Immediately after it happened I couldn't remember what colors looked like. Over time that started happening with a lot of things. I forgot what I looked like, my family, friends, etc. How did you think of shapes when you were blind? After you stopped being blind, shapes were something I could deal with. I couldn't visualize them, but I understood them, if that makes sense. When I got my sight back, oddly enough, it felt as if I never forgot what shapes looked like. There was no adjustment period like there was with colors. Is there a difference between the way you could see before and after? Not really, no. How did being blind affect your SAS life? I imagine it would affect a male much more than a female. It made it better. How exactly did it make it better? I relied a lot more on touch and sounds than I ever did before. I would match my breathing and moaning with a woman. I was more passionate and glued to her than I normally was. My hands would caress pretty much every single inch of her body and I took more pleasure in it. I felt like I was focusing more. Wait a second, did they set you up with anyone you hadn't seen before? Did you get to see them once you regained your sight? Do tell. Pretty much all of them were strangers to me. They were friends of friends, strangers in a club. Clubs weren't the most fun, super loud. I did get to meet about half of them after I got my sight back. One of them was a bombshell, but we didn't really get along too well when we tried doing the dating thing for real. The others were average, but in my mind I still find them beautiful. I didn't find any of them unattractive. Seeing eye dog or walking stick. I was actually very good about getting around. Lots of times I had a cane, but didn't really use it, and I still navigated around remarkably well, almost intuitively. I just kept the cane around me so others would know what's up. Do you find yourself closing your eyes and feeling to reorient yourself now that your sight is back? Can you find your way around without sight just as well now, or have you started losing that? I did for the first couple of days, not anymore. Here's the thing, I could navigate very well back then without a cane, but now if I were to close my eyes and try it, I would bump into everything. My doctor explained that I was good at navigating because my eyes could still see and a rudimentary part of my brain was still able to understand that there was an object in the way that I needed to avoid, even though I couldn't process the images. If you drink, is being drunk and blind a lot different? Is it harder to tell where you're going? Hahaha, I never got drunk throughout that time. I got power hammered when I regained my vision though. Were your other senses heightened while blind? If so, did this persist when you got your sight back? I wouldn't say they were heightened, but their obvious newfound overuse caused me to rely on them much more than I ever did, which is still the case now. Nowadays I always close my eyes when listening to a speech, music, lectures, etc., unless I'm driving. How old were you when this happened? When you regained your sight, were you able to recognize people's faces or object moving easily? I was 22. Some things came back right away, other things took time to get adjusted to, and felt completely new to me. Colors, for example, felt like something I had never seen, even before I went blind. I knew I had seen them, but I forgot what they were, so to speak. Faces came back immediately, so did shapes, but a lot of objects themselves took some getting used to. Reading also took time to get adjusted to, since I seemed to have forgotten how to do it. I kept reading in Braille for about 2 months after I regained my vision. How long did it take to learn Braille? Do you just start feeling words rather than letters after a while? 2 weeks to learn it, though it took months before I became a fast reader. Once you get to level 2 Braille, it starts morphing into a lot of words and not individual letters. What was the most eye-opening experience you had? Dreams not incorporating things I used to be able to see. That was weird. I mean, I understood the whole issue I had, but I still thought for some reason that I would be able to dream like I could before. What do you do for a living? I can't believe this hasn't been asked. And how was it affected? I was studying electrical engineering at the time. Now I'm an engineer. It was tougher to pick up where I left off in school when doing things in Braille. I was considering switching majors to law thanks to Daredevil and his awesomeness, but I figured I had gone that far, so I should stick to it. Good thing too. How do the blind do complex math? I always thought that would be near impossible. It was slow and tedious, which is why I wanted to change majors. To sum it up, raised graph paper. I can to feel my way around everything. How would you explain what seeing is like to someone who was born blind? Funny you mention that. I used to wonder the same thing before I was blind. I remember watching a movie, Mask with Sam Elliott, and Eric Stoltz, where Rocky tries explaining the concept of colors to a blind girl. He took a hot object, I think it was a potato, and put it in the girl's hand, and said that's red, and a cool object, and said that's blue. The problem with that is red and blue have been associated with hot and cold by people who are able to see the colors in the first place. If you've never seen the colors, you can't just imagine them and suddenly realize what they are. I still don't know of a way to explain what seeing is to someone who has never done so. During the relatively short time I was blind, I had already started to forget what certain things looked like, and it didn't help that my condition caused me to have trouble visualizing objects to begin with. When I got my vision back, there were a lot of things that felt new, even though I know I had seen them before. The color pink was, for some reason, a huge shock to me when I could see again.